right? It's great to get together again. It's been a while since we've done this, so just have some open dialogue, brainstorm, and just kind of spitball about behavior science. And we have with us today Brianna Snyder, a leader in the organization. She's a board-certified behavior analyst, and Katelynn Wiamer, also a BCBA and a leader at BDA. So we were going to talk about a couple things today. One of them is self-monitoring. You know, how does that key principle of self-monitoring, that behavioral science principle, how can that improve your own performance or the performance of those that you're leading? So it could be personal examples, it could be stuff at work. For me, I figured I'd kick it off. I was just thinking that one of the things I've been working on, because I have like pre-diabetes, I have to really keep my weight in check so that I don't fall into the full-blown type 2 diabetes. So as a result of that, I'm constantly self-monitoring my weight, because if my weight goes up, that definitely impacts triglycerides, cholesterol, all these things that can be challenging for a person with pre-diabetes. So the self-monitoring part is really fascinating, I think, because when I started weighing myself, I was just trying to get baseline. So I would weigh myself every morning to get baseline. But then I realized that I didn't even do an intervention. I had no intervention for my baseline, but the act of weighing myself and recording it every day resulted in these tweaks to my behavior where I started losing weight to be at a healthier range that my doctor suggested. So the act of it itself produces change at times. So I really needed no intervention. But I was just wondering with you guys, like, you know, whether it's the people that you lead or your own performance, what do you guys do in terms of self-monitoring?
I think it's important to start out at the right spot. So before even getting into self-monitoring, you have to back up and make sure that you're able to pinpoint exactly what you're trying to change, which is a huge part of it, because you want to make sure that you're targeting the right area and setting the right self-monitoring system to make that significant change. Yeah. So as long as you have the right target and you've pinpointed it, you can create a self-monitoring system to move you closer towards your goals, even if they are those small stepping stones. Yeah. I like that you had brought up the fact that you were holding yourself accountable to do it every day to get that baseline, because that's going to be one of those most important pieces, is making sure that when you're collecting that baseline data, that your goal that you're setting for yourself is attainable. Yeah. If you kind of skip that baseline step, you might set a goal that's way too high, and regardless of the self-monitoring system, you may never reach it.
True. But I don't know if you have any explanation for this, but and Brianna, maybe you do, but the interesting thing is I'd never even set a goal. Just the act of starting to weigh myself, all these little micro actions day to day. I started eating a little bit healthier. I ate a little bit more frequently. I lowered the poor carbohydrates, you know, like the white flours and things like that my doctor suggested. So those things just started happening as a result of monitoring, because I didn't want to get on the scale. It was too adversive to me to get on there and see that it was going up. So going down was a good thing, but didn't even set a goal yet. But the goal setting on top of it is powerful. Yeah. I think. How about you, Brianna? Are there certain self-monitoring?
I'd say there's a couple of things I do, even for myself. Like you said, similarly, I know this isn't for everyone, and I'm going to, I guess we'll put that disclaimer out there, but even like weighing myself every day to make sure I'm still in a healthy range, and even just like building muscle. I know Kate does this as well, doing more like an overall body scan every month, just to make sure that muscle is moving in the right direction, and thinking about even like fat loss, again, if that's a goal for you. And then even right now, what works for me is even just like being aware of what I'm eating throughout the day, because what I found was I wasn't eating enough to build muscle and continue strengthening what I already had. So
you could actually be it could be an inhibitor initially, what you were doing.
Yeah. And I know you said that weighing yourself every day was aversive. I have a different relationship with weighing it.
It was aversive if I was going up.
Right.
Yeah.
But I noticed you said you started to make small changes before even doing those big steps of the self-monitoring and the weighing yourself every day. So although those don't feel like goals, they're kind of small changes in your environment to set yourself up for success, which I think is super important. Like you had said, you knew certain food groups were detrimental or had a negative impact on your health. So you were actively trying to remove them out of the environment. And as you started doing that, maybe it started getting you a little bit more ready or closer to that self-monitoring system because you felt, I'm making some type of significant change. So I'm feeling okay to like start weighing myself every day because I'm taking baby steps.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think you need to be kind to yourself when getting on that bandwagon because it is new for people and that you're not used to having such a permanent product or that data in front of you all the time that says like, this is what you're doing.
Yeah.
And if it's not working, like that could be hard for a lot of people. So just learning how to take that accountability, and then applying whatever it is that you're learning about yourself to do better moving forward.
Yeah.
I think that's something that people have to be ready for that they're not always ready for.
Yeah,
is that
they-
accountability
And I think
piece.
setting up the environment, like you said, like I always pack lunch every single day. I have enough food for the day. So I don't end up just like stopping at a drive-through and getting something to eat. Even thinking about like post-Thanksgiving, we had a ton of desserts. And after a day or two, they went in the garbage because you're going to eat what's closest to you. You're going to want to go for the desserts, go for something easy. So even setting up your environment at home, and then you have what you need, and then you're not going towards those foods that you probably know aren't as healthy for you.
Yeah, so self-monitoring, if I'm hearing you, like self-monitoring in itself starts to result in you engineering your environment to just to prevent moments of weakness or you know, giving into something that, you know, is not good for you, but it's like immediately reinforcing, right? Man, that's awesome.
I think a key piece of that too is surrounding yourself with people who, one, either have your best interest at heart and are going to help you move forward towards those goals or have the same goals as you. So it is clinically proven that if you surround yourself with like-minded people, it's easier to get through those goals or those tough spots that you may experience when starting a new behavior or trying to shape a new behavior. Just again, because health and wellness is such a large part of what we do. If you go to the gym every morning, you're more likely to be successful if you have a gym buddy or somebody to go with or somebody to check in with and be like, hey, I made it today. And then they're able to give you that external reinforcement of great job, keep going.
Yeah.
You know, you can do this.
Absolutely. When I reflect back a little bit on, you're saying the people that you surround yourself with, when I reflect back a little bit, 14 years ago, and a hard habit to kick, but it was drinking. So I just totally went cold turkey, which I don't recommend for people because it could result in seizures and different side effects. But I just was fed up with my own behavior. So what I did is the first day that I quit, I just started making lists of how do I rearrange my environment and engineer the environment so I'm less likely to have a tendency to want to pick up a beer or have a drink. And some of the things that I manipulated in my environment that were environmental were, one, I always paired drinking with playing pool. So I was always playing in these pool leagues, and so that would be an antecedent manipulation. I just never picked up a stick for about 5 years. I didn't pick up a pool stick. That was associated with it. But like you were saying, the people I surrounded myself with, good people, they didn't have a problem with drinking. It was just me. So, but I realized I had to kind of sever that tie for a little while, and I kind of told all my friends, I'm like, guys, I'm going to have to dip out for a while just for me to establish a habit of alternatives to drinking, you know. So it's similar to what you were saying. But how about the application of self-monitoring when it comes to work? I mean, I have a lot of different things that I use it for with employees and so forth, but do you guys use any procedures where you're able to help lead somebody by having them self-monitor? Because one of the things that I've learned is that one of the hardest things to do, either with a student or an employee or yourself, is to fade out the feedback and the person that's holding you accountable. Because initially, it's great that you self-monitor and report out to a coach or something, or somebody cares, and then they reply, and then you're building momentum and you're creating a behavior change. But it's often hard to fade the part where you need a coach. So the way our industry is with board certified behavioral analysts, even though so many people recently passed, there still are not enough BCBAs to serve the population of RBTs and coach them. So if BCBAs could start to use the self-monitoring piece, that results in, say, the registered behavior technician starting a habit, getting frequent feedback, say you as a coach or me, and then weaning away my support, and the fact that they're self-monitoring in itself, and you've already established the behavior change, you know, it allows them to be independent. It means they don't have to depend on you. And then maybe you start with a different goal with an employee. So it's a way to phase out all the over support, so to speak.
I find that newly certified BCBA struggle a lot with organization. And I know that sounds silly because a large part of our job is to be organized and systematic about things. But I think programs don't do a wonderful job in terms of getting people ready for the fact that you're going to be spread across different environments, different individuals, different classrooms, schools, whatever that may look like. And you have to keep track of yourself, but also make sure that you're doing your job adequately. So something I like to set up a lot of my new staff with is a template for organization to see where you are and keep track of what you're doing. Because again, you're subject to human error. You go across so many places. If somebody, either a stakeholder or a client, has some type of discrepancy with the service that you provided, at least you'd be able to go back through this template that I provide all of my newly certified BCBAs and say, I was here at this time and I did X, Y, and Z. If you didn't have that self-monitoring system, you would never be able to say 6 months ago, I was here doing this.
Yeah.
And I know it's so easy to get lost in the sauce and just say, like, I'll fill it out later, or I'll just type up a quick session note. But this really breaks it down in a way that it's simple. So, like, I think that's really important with a self-monitoring system is that, one, it's simple. Because if it's cumbersome, it's never going to get done, or it'll only last for a little bit and then it'll fall to the wayside. And then two, it's accurate, right? It is a accurate system that says where you are at what time and what you're doing. So it's just making sure it has those two components. And I think it helps make BCBAs find their way. And I think it's very successful, honestly. And I've gotten a lot of great feedback on it. So that's one way that I help new BCBAs and when I'm coaching them up.
What are some items that might be in that template or checklist or that you think have an impact?
And it's just super simple. So it's just a Google Excel sheet, and it just says like the day, the time, the location, the learner that you assisted, and then your session notes. So it breaks it all up nicely in a way that they could reflect back if they needed to.
Okay.
And it's a system that I show them, and they're like, oh my God, I would have never put this together on my own. I would have just kind of been throwing things in a Google Doc, mumbo-jumboed, and just winging it.
Yeah.
And I think it helps you get your staff organized. So, okay, I have this many staff that I'm supervising. I need to make sure I'm going here, here, and here. So another thing that we talk about too is even from a scheduling standpoint, okay, what are you doing for the next month or two? Making sure you have it all mapped out. I typically do my schedule for the month at the end of the previous month, because then I'm like, all right, I have these staff to see. I have to supervise for this much time. So I get to everyone, and then when I'm there, I'm not just scattered, and I can be present when I'm there because I'm not just like, okay, I don't wake up and say, where am I going today?
Yeah.
I think that's how it's very easy to get burnt out is because you're not being proactive, you're being reactive, and then you're playing catch up every day. So even in terms of like IEPs, like that's something that I discuss too with my coachees is you have X amount of learners with IEPs, and it's a legally binding document, so you have to fulfill that and see them as often as it says in there. And how are you going to know that if you don't all have that information in one location? So again, we do the same thing. We make a Google spreadsheet together, and in each tab, it's the learners' names, and then how often you have to see them. And then each time you do, you just go in there, type in your session note, how long you were there for. And then again, if it ever came up in an IEP meeting, or if there is a disgruntled parent that calls, you're able to reflect back on that and provide them with a snapshot of exactly what you've been doing.
Yeah.
So not only is it saves you time, but it also reduces a lot of stress for those newly certified staff. And again, it's all on them. Yeah. It takes you out of the picture. You don't have to handhold, you know?
One of the things that I've learned, and in the OBM research it supports, is that when you do self-monitor and you do report it out to maintain accountability for your own behavior. Somehow getting graphic feedback about your behavior over time, for me, that's been a powerful tool on something that I have to work on. Either I was like self-charting it, or like with the Smash My Goal app that they're working out in California, I like how it actually automatically charts my previous behavior each time I enter progress on it or lack of progress, because there's something about that graph going down that is very unpleasant, and then negative reinforcement kicks me in the butt to change, right? And then there's something that's so reinforcing about seeing the graphic feedback go up. So I remember doing at West Virginia, doing my thesis on self-monitoring and graphic feedback, and I remember just the fact that you're being measured, and it's displayed like we do every single Monday with a large group. It really helps you look at behavior over time, because I think the field that we're in, we accidentally, I was talking about this, we were talking about last night, it can be somewhat unmotivating when one day you're working with a learner and they're making all this progress, the chart looks great, but then the next day they have a meltdown and so to speak, and everything you work towards fell apart. So what I've learned is it's so much more motivating to look at that chart over time of the learner's behavior, and if it's trending in the right direction, that's a big deal, because too often we don't have a concrete result for the work that we do, So.
One thing I really like about graphic feedback is it removes all like the biases and those emotional responses that may come along with somebody giving you corrective feedback verbally.
Yeah.
It really removes all of that and just says, like, this is your behavior. Like, this is a snapshot of it. This is what it looks like. It has nothing to do with anything else. If you don't like it and it stings, let's change it.
Yeah.
But if you're cool with this, that's on you.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's one part.
It just makes it front and center for you to know where you are.
Exactly.
Right?
And again, it can be very aversive, but if you can't accept your own behavior, then you're not going to be able to change it.
Yeah. Kate and I were just talking a little bit before this, and about the fact that I'm going back and forth with Boston Dynamics right now, because I think there's so much potential in the robot dog. And I know it sounds crazy, but the Boston Dynamics now has come up with, it's pretty incredible. It's being used for safety now, and it's being used for a very small segment of people are using it as companionship for people with disabilities, but it's got so many upsides to it. So if I'm approved to be able to purchase this robotic dog from Boston Dynamics, then I know it'll also help with the self-monitoring piece, because it'll give me feedback, both audio, visual, on my own behavior, which will be able to either provide motivation for my own performance, or it'll, let me know when I have to adjust. But did you guys want to talk about, I think the future, I don't think anyone would disagree that, we're not going to replace humans with artificial intelligence and machine learning, but we are going to be able to refine the science and the application of it through precision measurement by AI, because it's going to be a way that we can learn much more rapidly. I mean, when you think about it, an individual that you're trying to shape behavior through successive approximations, they're an individual that's trained, say, a registered behavior technician. There's a lot of things they're going to miss. They might not be able to reward the small steps along the way because they might miss it because they're humans, However, like a artificial intelligence may catch every successive approximation that the learner makes towards the final goal, and know when to reward it and know when to step back and when there isn't progress. And I think that's a very hard thing. I mean, it's even hard for BCBAs to know sometimes, okay, when do I put my foot on the gas to really start to reinforce steps towards the final goal, or when is it that I haven't reinforced frequently enough and we have to step back because it's a Monday and the learner, is not progressing like they did when they left off on a Friday. So identifying how to reinforce small steps is not easy, but I think artificial intelligence will help be that guide for paraprofessionals, RBTs, and BCBAs.
So you think it would be a good training initiative in a sense of like, so other clinicians can utilize their time in a different way, and then greener staff could be trained by these dog robots.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's fascinating that at this point in time, certain artificial intelligence platforms now are testing, in the top 5 percentile with IQ as opposed to humans. So it doesn't mean that they'll have the judgment, and it doesn't mean they're going to have the compassion, but the fact that it's learning from itself so rapidly, it's producing such a exponential change that within the next 2 years, I mean, it's pretty exciting. If you think there are a couple monumental moments in our history that propelled us forward, like in the very beginning, it might have been the printing press, right? Just getting information out there. Then later, it may have been the iPhone or something similar to that, the power of the iPhone, and later it could have been the internet. But now we're entering into a whole new world of untapped potential, which is so exciting, if it's regulated appropriately, right? So, in other words, this movement towards artificial general intelligence, or what they call AGI, where it rapidly learns from itself, it's on such a steep curve of learning, way quicker than humans. So I do know that in general, it takes government a little while to catch up and regulate things. So I think we're going to have to really rely on our private industry, on private industry such as a SpaceX or an Amazon or some of these groups to really help regulate these things, because you can imagine that after a while, artificial intelligence might realize that human behavior is damaging the earth, or it might identify that human behavior is harmful to machine learning.
I do think you have a point, though, that there are a lot of people who are reluctant to accept the AI or any of the new daily tasks that it can help you with. But I feel like every time there's a new technology that happens, like I'm sure when there were automatic graphing systems for targeted behavior, even like in our own company when we introduced Central Reach and we kind of removed that manual graphing piece and we allowed a system to do that for us, there was some pushback. But I feel like that's the fear of the unknown. And when you have a good support system and, like you said, the right safety precautions and regulations are in place and the why is explained to people, once they realize the capabilities of the platform or the AI technology, and it makes their lives easier, I think they'll be more willing to join that that move.
Yeah, especially when it comes to those with some physical needs. So when looking at the Boston Dynamics dog that's called Spot, it's evolved to the point now where, so if an individual has challenges opening a door or some physical limitations, this thing's amazing. It just turns the door handle, opens it. The Spot, the dog, takes its foot and actually holds the door, and then while the rest of its body walks in, and some of the tasks it can complete are pretty amazing. So you can imagine AI is now being used for surgical procedures to increase precision. It's helping surgeons. At some point, it'll be these AI systems actually doing it just with the oversight of a doctor,
But even just like it could be that, like thinking about someone who might have physical limitations, even if, like I know now for someone who might live alone, they might have some kind of system in place where, okay, if they were to fall or something were to happen, maybe they push a button or they have their phone on them. But I feel like that takes it a step further where it knows what's going on right away and it doesn't require that person to do anything. Exactly. So it's just, it can report back, it can go, call 911 for somebody, do whatever it needs to do to kind of get them that help.
So almost for like an emergency response, it'll know all the signs to be able to contact 911 or whatever.
Right. Or like someone with seizures, like you see people now who have seizure dogs who can detect that. I'd imagine AI could probably do the same thing.
Yeah, so if AI is learning from the way dogs can identify the stimuli that precede a seizure, like at some point AI will be even more refined than the dogs that are doing it, right? I would imagine. So, thanks for just taking the time to brainstorm and just kick around ideas. I really feel that it's exciting that the science of behavior analysis now is starting to extrapolate into all these other areas, like Skinner always suggested that we did in his works. And I'm noticing that the field is being a bit more flexible to look into the future. Just because something isn't yet evidence-based does not mean that you don't want to give it a try, relate it to the principles, and do it ethically, and then document it, and then it is evidence-based later. Because I don't know if you're I think it was like 5 or 6 years ago, almost every YouTube video that we would produce when we would extrapolate the science, I always had to say, this is not supported by my board-certified behavior analyst credential. I don't know if I still have to do that or not because the stuff that I see on YouTube, but I do think that the more that we push the limits and keep seeing how do we apply it to a different field, the more that it also shows that we're better at it. So.